Copyright is protection provided by law that allows an owner absolute right to capitalize on his or her creativity. This protection, outlined in Section 1, Article 8 of the United States Constitution, was designed with the intention of bolstering innovation. Copyright protection does not last forever. Generally, copyright remains in place until 70 years after the death of the owner. Contrary to some public perceptions, an owner does not need to file for copyright protection. If a work is tangible, it is automatically copyright protected upon creation. Ideas cannot be copyright protected. Once a copyright is expired, the work reverts back to the public domain, meaning that the use of the work is no longer restricted by law. Use of works in the public domain do not require permission from the owner, nor are they associated with any royalty fees. For example, if you'd like to perform Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, you do not need to seek permission or pay for the right to do so. Some works enter the public domain as soon as they are created. For example, any U.S. government-created work or document is automatically part of the public domain. Additionally, owners may choose to make their works available to the public domain. Works in this category are usually labeled for easy identification. Organizations such as Project Gutenberg and CreativeCommons.org make searching for works in the public domain a little easier. So you might be asking yourself, how does restricting an individual's ability to use works created by someone else encourage innovation? The answer to that question lays in the set of exceptions to copyright law. These exceptions are called the Fair Use Guidelines. Fair Use Guidelines are outlined in Section 107 of U.S. copyright law. This addendum contains a list of reasons and intentions for which the use of copyrighted materials is exempt from the general copyright restrictions. These specific uses include criticism, commentary, parody, news reporting, research, teaching, and scholarship. Now you might be thinking, great, I'm a teacher, so I can use copyrighted materials whenever I want, right? Unfortunately, no. Special consideration of the way in which the copyrighted information is being used goes a long way in determining if your intended use falls under fair use provisions. The United States Copyright Office clearly states 4 areas for consideration when determining if intended use is fair: the purpose and character of the use, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the whole, and the effect of the use upon the potential market for the original. The vague nature of fair use guidelines provides a significant amount of flexibility for the user. However, this same equality is responsible for much confusion and even fear on the part of the user. Seeking to capitalize on these fears, certain organizations have negotiated terms for fair use with industries that hold copyrights. These negotiated agreements present fair use in a much more quantitative manner, but by doing so, they present a clear set of instructions for the user, but do so in a way that is more restrictive than the fair use guidelines were meant to be. Here's an important thing to remember. If you see one of these charts or negotiated guidelines in use, they are not the law, and should not be used to determine if use of copyright materials falls under fair use. It is up to the individual to evaluate his or her copyrighted material and determine if it qualifies for fair use. So how exactly do you determine if your use of copyrighted materials falls under fair use? The key element is transformativeness. As the term suggests, something that demonstrates transformativeness requires a significant change or metamorphosis to be evident. In order to truly be considered transformative, this change must include a change in purpose. Here is an example of fair use. Professor Eric Faden of Bucknell University created this instructional video to teach people about copyright and fair use. To create this video, extremely tiny one-word clips from a handful of Disney movies were spliced together. Each clip contained one word. Together, these clips created the commentary that instructed the viewer. Guidelines of transformativeness have definitely been met in this case. The original copyrighted Disney videos were created for the purpose of entertainment and profit. Professor Faden's use of the small clips of a variety of Disney films for the purpose of instruction and parody demonstrates a significant change in purpose. Both education and parody are purposes that qualify for fair use. It should not be overlooked that this example uses tiny portions of the original works and does not impact the profits that the copyright holder makes. All in all, it is a perfect example of transformativeness and meets all fair use criteria. There's a lot of flexibility in the fair use guidelines for educators, but that doesn't mean anything goes. For example, copying entire textbooks for a whole class to avoid incurring the cost of buying them is definitely a violation of copyright. In this case, no transformation has occurred. The copyright represents the material in the same exact form as the original text and has the same purpose, to instruct. Additionally, large-scale photocopying has a negative effect on the publisher's ability to profit. from their copyright, and thus it is not deemed fair use. If one were to evaluate this presentation, one would find sources that were both copyright protected and in the public domain. The copyrighted works are usable, thanks to fair use guidelines. They have been used for a purpose that differs from their original, and that use is educational. Additionally, the use of these copyrighted works in this presentation does not impact the value of the original in any way that is negative. All works, print, media, and copyright protected and those of the public domain have been cited here to give credit where credit is due. So now that you are an expert on copyright and fair use, you can feel more confident when creating activities for use in your classroom. Happy transforming!